Before we start, subscribe if you're fascinated by true crime stories where hidden patterns, quiet characters, and buried secrets change everything. This is one of those stories. The robbery happened at 2:17 a.m. on Christmas Eve, in a city where most people believed nothing truly bad could happen during the holidays. Snow fell softly outside the glass-fronted Midtown Trust Bank, the kind of peaceful snowfall that convinces you the world is still good. Inside, the alarms were silent. The vault was open, and by morning, nearly $4 million would be gone. The first person blamed wasn't a criminal. It was Evan Brooks, the night security analyst no one ever noticed. Evan was invisible by design. 32 years old, soft-spoken, permanently hunched over surveillance monitors in the basement office. He was the man people talked over, the one executives forgot to greet, the one whose access logs everyone assumed were too boring to check. Especially Calvin Royce, the bank's vice president of operations. Royce was polished, powerful, and untouchable, and he needed a scapegoat. By sunrise, Evan was sitting in an interrogation room, hands trembling, staring at a single photo slid across the table. Showed the vault door open. Timestamp: 2:14 a.m. access code used. Evans, you want to explain this? Royce asked calmly, watching from behind the glass like a king observing a trial. Evan tried to speak, but the words tangled in his throat. He knew the truth sounded impossible. He hadn't opened the vault. He had been logged in, yes, but only because someone else wanted it that way. For years, Evan had noticed patterns no one cared about. Small discrepancies in transaction timings. After-hours server pings routed through executive credentials. Access overrides signed digitally but never verbally approved. When he reported them, Royce would smile and say, "You worry too much, Evan. That's why you're down there." Now Evan understood. The basement wasn't where he worked. It was where he was hidden. The official story moved fast. Too fast. News anchors called it a tragic case of holiday greed. Police leaked Evan's name within hours. His apartment was searched. His phone seized. His neighbors stared at him like he was already guilty. Royce gave a televised statement expressing deep disappointment in a trusted employee. But Evan wasn't greedy. He was meticulous. And before they took his computer, he remembered something. 3 weeks earlier, he had installed a private backup system on the surveillance servers. Not out of rebellion but habit. A mirror archive. Hidden. Untouched. If someone had used his credentials, the system would know how. That night, alone in the interrogation room, Evan made a choice. He stopped trying to convince them. Instead, he asked for a lawyer, and for one phone call. The backup revealed everything. Not just the robbery, but the double life behind it. Calvin Royce wasn't just a banker. He was running a shadow operation using dormant accounts, shell charities, and offshore crypto wallets. The robbery wasn't theft. It was a transfer. And Evan's credentials weren't hacked. They were assigned, routed through an executive override system Royce personally controlled. The final piece was the timing. Every major illegal transfer Royce had made happen during holidays, weekends, or emergencies, when oversight was thin and excuses were easy. Christmas wasn't symbolism. It was strategy. Evan's lawyer passed the files quietly to a federal investigator who still believed in patterns. Within 48 hours, Royce's office was raided. His accounts frozen. His passport flagged. The media narrative began to wobble. But power doesn't fall quietly. Royce was arrested, but released pending investigation. And the next morning, Evan received a message slid under his apartment door. No name, no stamp, just a single sentence typed neatly on white paper. You should have stayed invisible. The pressure escalated. Anonymous tips accused Evan of additional crimes. His lawyer was threatened. His backup files were nearly deleted remotely, only saved by a last-minute air gap Evan had installed months earlier, just in case. Then the power shifted. During a closed federal hearing on December 30th, Evan was allowed to testify. He didn't speak emotionally. He spoke precisely. He explained systems, timings, permissions. He showed how power hides behind complexity, and how arrogance leaves fingerprints. Royce watched from the defense table, jaw clenched, realizing too late that the man he had dismissed was the one who truly understood the machine. By New Year's Eve, Royce was formally charged with wire fraud, conspiracy, and financial crimes spanning a decade. The media called Evan the unlikely hero. But Evan didn't feel like one. He felt hollow. Justice had been served, but it had cost him everything. His job, his anonymity, his safety. That night, as fireworks echoed across the city, Evan sat alone in his apartment, staring at the snow falling past his window. He believed it was over. Then his phone vibrated. New message. Unknown number. You exposed one account, it read. You didn't expose them all. Attached was a screenshot. A familiar server interface. His old backup system. Still active. Still being accessed. Evan's stomach dropped. Royce hadn't been working alone. And whoever had just messaged him knew exactly how the system worked. Almost as well as Evan did. Inside, the new year arrived. Inside, Evan realized the truth. The robbery hadn't revealed a double life. It had revealed a network. And the next move wouldn't be financial. Evan Brooks didn't sleep that night. The message sat on his phone like a weight on his chest. You exposed one account. You didn't expose them all. It meant what he feared most. Calvin Royce had never been the mastermind. He had been a manager, a gatekeeper, and now the gate was wide open. Evan understood something most people never do. That powerful systems don't collapse when one man falls. They adapt, they replace, they erase. By dawn, Evan was already moving. He packed only what he needed. A laptop, 2 external drives, old notebooks filled with hand-drawn system maps. He didn't call his lawyer. Phones were liabilities now. Instead, he returned to the basement office he'd once been mocked for. Occupying. The badge scanner still worked. No one had thought to revoke access for a man they believed was already broken. That arrogance would cost them. Inside the server room, Evan plugged into the backup system he'd designed years ago. The same one now being accessed without his permission. The logs confirmed it. Multiple IPs. Multiple credentials. Different banks. Same architecture. It wasn't a single criminal ring. It was an ecosystem. Executives, consultants, shell auditors, using the holidays as camouflage. Christmas wasn't about symbolism. It was about distraction. The deeper Evan went, the clearer it became. Royce had been laundering money upward, not outward, feeding a network that rewarded silence and punished curiosity. And now that network knew Evan existed. At 11:42 a.m., Evan received another message. This time a voice memo. Professional. Almost kind. Evan, you're very smart. That's why this has to stop now. Walk away. Disappear. We'll make sure you're comfortable. It wasn't a threat. It was worse. It was an offer. Evan laughed quietly in the server room. Not because it was funny, but because it confirmed everything. Innocent men don't get offered comfort. Only liabilities do. He forwarded the data to 3 places at once. A federal task force, an investigative journalist who specialized in financial crime, and a public encrypted drop site scheduled to auto-release if his system went dark. Then the power shifted again. Within hours, federal agents moved. Warrants stacked. Offices locked down. Executives who had once smiled on morning news segments were escorted out in silence. The story broke fast, and this time there was no scapegoat. No easy villain. Just patterns, evidence, and names people recognized. Evan watched the coverage from a borrowed apartment across town. He felt no triumph. Justice didn't feel clean. It felt late. He knew too much now to believe this was the end. Networks didn't vanish. They retreated. That night his doorbell rang. Evan froze. No call. No message. Just the bell. Once. He opened the door to find a small package on the floor. Inside was a single object. A bank access card, expired, stamped with a branch code he recognized immediately. Midtown Trust, basement level. His old office. Tucked beneath it was a note. "You missed one." Evan's hands shook as he logged back into the system. There it was. A dormant server node he had never mapped. Isolated, hidden, running on an internal loop. Someone had anticipated him. Someone who knew how underdogs think. And then he saw the date on the scheduled transfer. December 24th. Next year. They weren't done. They were waiting. Evan sat back, exhausted, the weight of the truth pressing down on him. Justice had been served, but not finished. He finally understood the lesson buried beneath everything he'd endured. Power doesn't fear outrage. It fears precision. It fears the people who watch quietly, learn patiently, and refuse to stay invisible. Outside, the city moved on. Decorations came down. Headlines changed. But Evan didn't forget. He started planning, mapping, preparing, because next Christmas someone would try again. And this time, they wouldn't expect the man in the basement to still be watching. His phone buzzed one last time before dawn. Unknown number. 3 words. "See you next Christmas." Evan closed his laptop slowly, already knowing the truth. The robbery had never been about money. Had been a test. And the real game was just beginning.